Okay. I told you guys, I promised. I was trying to stay away from the Utah to the Big Ten stuff. I was trying to stay away from it. I really was. But we got another tweet lobbed out there. And I do feel like at this point, we can address it. I think the message to me is still pretty much the same. I don't know that anything has really changed on my stance on this or what the reality is for Utah trying to, speaking of, hanging out outside the club and beg its way in, trying to, tug the t-shirt of the bouncer that's there like, hey, bro, let me in, let me in. What we do know, though, is, in light of this, because we got another one of these, Utah fans, I'm sure will just never stop talking about this. Okay. And in some ways, I can't blame them for that. But it is the reality. So you guys remember what I didn't go full in on was just a message board genius post, which was very funny. And it turns out, I think it was a troll job on a Utah message board. And that's really why I didn't, because to me, it seemed pretty obvious that it was just somebody trolling on a message board. But here it was, if you missed it. So it's this guy, Ute for Life, posting this anonymously on a burner account. I've been told Utah's integration in the Big 12, blah, 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 blah. He's saying Utah is going to be in the Big 10 soon. Utah to the Big 10 is all but a done deal. And there are all these details, and it reads like it's a very serious, like, hey, I really, really do think that this could happen. So it drew plenty of criticism, plenty of people dunking on it, which I felt like I saw through it pretty quickly. Like, hey, this is fake. This is someone doing a good troll job, which I can appreciate, because it sounded like a Utah fan. That's what they've been saying and acting like since before they even came into this conference. Like, we are clearly Big Ten worthy and Big Ten bound and all these things. But with that, it was like, okay, people quickly pointed out it was an account that was created very recently on that board, which means probably somebody that just came in, popped in to do it to troll. So I didn't think it was really worth addressing. But, this is a commonly held belief, I think, among a lot of Utah fans and people that are not just random Ute fan 22, whatever, on a message board, have stoked these flames over the last couple of years. Kyle Whittingham has insinuated this a lot. It feels like every time he goes in front of a microphone to talk about this, he's like, who knows how long we'll be playing these teams? He's always, who knows how long we'll be playing these teams? As in, like, always, like, oh, of course there'll be more realignment. Of course, it's the insinuation there is going for Always Sunny fans, the implication is that it's about the Big Ten and that they would be moving on up. Rick Neuheisel went on like a radio show last year. I was just recounting that earlier today. It's about this time last year, went on a radio show and was like, oh yeah, Utah will be in the Big Ten eventually. So, people continue to do this, and Utah fans, look, they loved rubbing elbows with the academic elite, what they consider to be like the elite of society out in Pac-12 country. And so they want to be back in that sort of company, and the Big Ten offers them more of that, and clearly as well feel like the football is worthy, and it might be. But by this point, you're probably asking, all right, so what's the new one today, John? Well, here it is. This is from Jim Williams, who is somebody we've talked about before. He's a figure certainly in like conference realignment Twitter, but also somebody that, and I'll bring up the tweet here too, but is also somebody who has had a career in media. Okay. And Jim says, this week spoke to 3 Big Ten officials who are part of the vetting team who look into possible new members. To sum up what they told me, there's a great deal to like about Utah football, and they feel like they would be a good fit. Now, this is, I believe, supposed to say they are not a lock as opposed to they are a lock. The but, I think, gives that away. Feel they would be a good fit, but they are not a lock. We have plenty of candidates to go over before we explore adding more teams. At this point, no one is a lock. All right, so Jim Williams, sports media columnist for Athlon Sports. He was a TV exec, former Emmy-winning producer in the game. So that's what he says about talking to people in the Big Ten about Utah. Now, I don't think, again, this really changes a whole lot. I would have guessed that if you asked people in the Big Ten, they'd be like, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, Utah could be a potential addition there. They're probably on a list of like 10 to 12 teams. But that doesn't mean that Utah will get any real special or preferential treatment on its way to the Big Ten. I think the only reality here is that if in 2030, like everybody predicts, the college landscape dramatically changes and it's not breaking into some sort of a super league, if those things don't gain any traction over the next 5 years, and it will just be the Big Ten and SEC becoming like AFC, NFC and adding more teams, yeah, then it could happen. But in that case, I think you would see a wave where a lot of teams would be added. It wouldn't be all that special or unique, and that there would be other Big 12 schools likely going to one of the two conferences as well. So I don't think it's as valuable as Utah fans that are sitting here like, oh, this sucks. We're in the Big 12. I want to fight to get out of this league. I don't think it's as valuable as they might take it to be right now. I think there are plenty of teams that would be ahead of them. I mean, look, we've talked about Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, all these schools in the ACC. There are plenty of schools that would be ahead of them in the pecking order there. And unless something happens that starts a wave from all of those schools, I don't see the scenario where it really plays out right now. So if the solace is, hey, in 2030, when the big shift happens, the next one happens, then we're in a pretty good spot, then, hey, I mean, that is great. But I would have told you that before. Utah's football program's been good enough to do that. There are caveats, though. Are they infallible for that? No, I don't think they are. And how much longer is Kyle Whittingham going to be doing this? And how many games did Kyle Whittingham win last year? You guys know I'm big on Utah to bounce back, but you got to actually do it. I mean, you can't keep rolling out 5 and 7 seasons in the Big 12. I mean, that's not going to get it done. If you do that 4 out of 5 years until 2030, that's not going to be Big Ten worthy. So Utah is not resource and history packed enough to just be some lock no matter what happens. They got to keep it up. And it's a risk. How many head coach in waiting situations have we seen that have paid off and been really, really good? Doesn't happen a whole lot. So there's reason to be skeptical about just passing the baton off to Morgan Scalley here pretty soon. We'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But to me, I don't know that this really changed very much at all, quite frankly, for how I feel about Utah and how I feel about their actual prospects at getting into the Big Ten or, moving on from the Big 12 here at some point. So we can keep doing this if we want. If people want to keep floating stuff, it's going to be an ongoing joke. I'm sure there will be ongoing trolling about it. I'm sure there will be ongoing posting about it from Utah fans and wish casting about it. Look, especially if Utah continues to not perform well in the Big 12, which is what happened here in year one. But I don't think the reality is that much has changed at all. Starter 179 says, I now understand why Utah has been so upset that BYU joined the Big 12. Utah has been objectively bad in all sports, and BYU is a top NIL and brands. Well, BYU does have some issues, I will say, Starter 179, that I'm going to talk about in just one moment. So it hasn't been perfect. It hasn't been perfect for the Cougs, but you are correct. I mean, in year one, like BYU was the team that got the national attention. They won 11 games. They flirted with the Big 12 championship game in the playoff. Probably should have been, retrospectively, if we're looking at it, in the playoff or on the very outside looking in. And then in basketball, yeah, they go to the Sweet 16, have a great year. They bring in the number one high school recruit in the country. The controversy around them right now, and I kind of almost like air quotes controversy, is, does BYU have too much money? Does BYU have too much money in this Wild West NIL era? Boy, what a problem to have. And I don't mean to mock people who really do. I know that the culture around BYU is that's, frowned upon by some and not really a reputation that the school wants. But that's a reputation that almost everybody else in the country would want. So, yeah, it's gone pretty well for BYU. And for Utah, it's been the opposite. It's been a complete disappointment. They had to fire their basketball coach and completely just copied the homework, reached over, didn't even ask BYU to copy their homework. Just did the old, looking over, leaning, didn't, and nobody noticed. They just completely copied the homework to hire Alex Jensen. So, yeah, it's been a little rough. Doesn't mean it can't turn around, though. And I would imagine that on the football field, it will, at the very least, to a certain extent for Utah. So there's my thoughts.